Hello and welcome to the Bestseller Experiment, where we continue to discover what makes a bestseller and inspire you to start, finish and publish your book. I'm Mark Stay.
And I'm Mark DeVoe, and we'd like to say thank you to all of our amazing patrons and all of our Academy members who make this show possible. We are very delighted to have you all, and thank you this week. We've had Rachel Funnel sign up to become a patron, and if you would like to join Rachel, I was thinking, Mark, what we should do as we're moving into August. Actually, by the time this comes out, it will be August. It's happy summer to everyone out there, obviously on the Western Hemisphere, and happy skiing to everyone in New Zealand and Australia and the other side of the world. But if you would like to become a patron, over the next month, we are starting something called Fabulous 50. We would like 50 new patrons this month, folks. So if you would like to join the merry band of people, if you've been listening to this podcast for a while and you think, you know what, I really enjoy this, I want to contribute towards, the running cost of the podcast, become one of our Fabulous 50 and we will give you a shout out. And if you've got a book coming out, or if you've had a book out, we'll also mention your book as well on the podcast over the next couple of months. So pop over to bestsellerexperiment.com/support to join the Fabulous 50 in August. So Mr. Stay, it's hot and sticky and humid in Canada. I know you've had this in England, but man, it is absolutely baking today.
It's moist in all the wrong places and all the worst ways. But fret not, people, because we have a huge announcement to make. We've got some really, really cool news. For those of you keeping count, you may have seen that we are edging towards a significant number in our episodes. We're coming up to episode 400. Can you believe that, Mr. Lee? Can you believe that? 400 episodes. How did that happen? Blink.
I don't know.
Whoosh.
One episode at a time, I guess.
Yeah. How do you eat the elephant? One episode at a time. So to celebrate 400 episodes, although to be honest, because of the way it's all falling, it might be 401 episodes. But we'll gloss over that. To celebrate 400 episodes, we are going to be having a special live edition of the podcast at Waterstones in Canterbury. So you can join me, and we've got a panel of amazing writers, including Rowan Coleman, Pernilla Hughes, Nadine Matheson, and Julie Wassmer. And so after nearly 6 years, 400 episodes, we're going to be asking if writing, is it a job for life? In these uncertain times, can an author really earn a living from just their writing? So our authors share their experiences. So Rowan and Julie, they've been doing this for many, many years now. They've managed to forge a career. Pernilla and Nadine, they're on second and third books of their career. They'll be looking ahead to the future. They'll be giving us their perspective. And this is a celebration. There's going to be wine, there's going to be a cake, you're going to have a chance to meet the authors, you can get your book signed, you can meet me if that's something, and we're hoping now, Mr. D.
I want to meet you, Mark. Most people don't realise that we do this on opposite sides of the world, and we've actually only met a couple of times in person, haven't we? I mean, obviously, since we knew each other as kids, but I might have to pop over.
But we are, don't make promises you can't keep, Mr. D. But we're going to hopefully, we're going to look at the technology and see if we can beam Mr. D in via the miracle of the internet.
Do you know what?
So,
I think it's worth
stand by for that.
It's worth showing up just to see if that actually technologically can happen. I think it'd be absolutely hilarious. And for everyone out there, this is also a celebration of you as well. I mean, for every single listener who's started with us in episode 1, or maybe discovers us on episode 400 and goes, what's all this about? What are they doing drinking wine in a bookshop? But we would like to celebrate you as authors. So if you've had if the podcast has any impact on you over the years, please see if you can make it in person. But if not, join us, because I believe, Mark, it's going to be streamed online. Is that correct?
Yes, if the technological gods are in our favour. Yes, so it's Wednesday, 31st of August at 6:30, Waterstones, Canterbury, in the flesh. But there should be an online element to it as well. So, yeah. But so it's if you can make it in person, that's amazing. If you can't, join us online. But tell everyone you know that this is happening, because if it's just me and the authors and the bookshop manager and his dog, it's going to be very embarrassing. So we need to fill this room up, people.
And do you know what? 6:30, that's UK time. So that's 10:30 a.m. if you're on the West Coast of the US or Canada. That's, here we go. Let me work this one out. 1:30 if you're on EST time, and if you're Europe, we're talking about it's an hour later, isn't it? So it's 7:30 in the evening. And then if you're in Australia and New Zealand, this is always the one that catches me out. It's not too early in the morning. It's not too. I had somebody, Mark, show up to the academy training, the life coaching the other day from New Zealand, and it was early morning start, bright as a button, absolutely brilliant. So you know what? For people out in Australia and New Zealand, this could be the opportunity for you to start that early morning writing habit. So get up for the podcast, enjoy and join us, and then be inspired to write for that day.
As always, there will be a link in the show notes with all the details. Click on the link. It's all there. But like I say, this is going to be really, really great fun, and I can't wait to meet you either in person or virtually.
I know. It's a quite an incredible thing. And actually, this idea of writing, we talked about on the training, actually, the life coaching on Monday, about, really when you think about it, writing a book is just one word at a time. In fact, it's one letter at a time if you break it down. And we never really decided to make this podcast, or we never really thought of this podcast as being a long running, 6-year, 400 episode plus venture. But what's incredible is literally you keep showing up each week, and it's like writing. You just show up every day, and those books will happen as if by magic. But anyway, it's been such a blast, and so do join us. Also, for anyone who's interested in joining the Bestseller Academy, if you're thinking about early September, kids going back to school maybe, or you're thinking about beginning of the academic year, that'd be a great time to kind of refocus. The Academy doors are going to be opening at the beginning of September. That means you can get on the wait list now, and you can get applications in towards the mid to end of August. So if you're interested, I really, really strongly encourage you to get over to academy.bestsellerexperiment.com and just get your name on the wait list so that you can get the information when it's released. Now, Mr. Stay, we have a fantastic interview today. Another incredible, massive best-selling author.
Yes, just a bit. Lisa Regan is the USA Today and Wall Street Journal best-selling author of the Detective Josie Quinn series, as well as a bunch of whole other titles as well. The first one of them, Vanishing Girls, came out in 2018. Okay, but when I interviewed her for this, we were up to book 14. So just think, 2018 to 2022, 14 books. Now, when we interviewed I interviewed Lisa earlier in the year, and this is now coming out in August. Actually, the next book is coming out in August. So we're talking about book 14, which is Watch Her Disappear. But book 15 is about to come out, called Local Girl Missing. So bear that in mind when you hear me talking to Lisa. To say she's prolific is something of an understatement, but she's just amazing. So we discuss how to keep track of a series, her close relationship with her readers, and why you should never underestimate the reader, and much more.
Absolutely brilliant. Let's dive in and listen to Mark chatting to the absolutely lovely Lisa Regan.
Lisa Regan, welcome to the Bestseller Experiment. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm spectacular. Thank you for asking. We're here to celebrate the launch of your new book, Watch Her Disappear, which is the 14th in the Detective Josie Quinn series. Tell us about this incredible series and Josie Quinn's latest adventure.
Well, the series is about a female detective who works at a small city police department in central Pennsylvania in the United States. And Josie started out in Vanishing Girls, which is book 1, as being sort of very flawed and damaged. She had a little alcohol problem, some anger management issues. But to balance that out, she's very, very concerned with justice and protecting vulnerable citizens. And so she will do anything to do her job and do it correctly, even if it means she will pay some prices personally. And over the course of the series, with each case, she grows a little bit personally. She's now in book 14, she's given up drinking. She's learned to kind of let other people help her. And she's made a lot of important relationships among the other series regular characters. So with each book, she grows a little bit, and she is kind of plunged into a different hellish case with each book. And in Watch Her Disappear, the opening is that at a prom goer, a female prom goer is found on the school property murdered. And so Josie and her team have to figure out who she is. And then it turns out that she was not even at the prom. So then the next thing they have to figure out is, well, why is she dressed in a prom dress with her hair and makeup done, and she's on the property, but she never actually went to the prom. And then it goes from there. And as she works her way through the case, we find out that her chief, who's been in the series since book 4, but we don't know anything about him. She finds out that he has a connection to this murder. And so then it's her job to delve into his past and try to connect the two in order to find the killer. So readers who have been waiting to find out what the chief's backstory is, we're very, very happy to read this book, because this is entirely about the chief and his past.
Fantastic. Now, for a moment there, and viewers, if you're watching this on the YouTube version, you'll see her eyes sort of darted up when she said Chief arrived in book 4. That's incredible, incredible recall, Lisa. How are you keeping track of I'm always fascinated with authors with a long-running series, because I'm 4 books into a series myself, and already I'm struggling to keep track of my own stuff. How do you keep track of such a long-running series?
It's not easy. I believe around book 5 or 6, I actually hired someone to write me a series Bible.
Right.
And her name is Claire Milto. And so now what happens is every time I write a new book, I send her a copy. She reads it. She adds things to the Bible. And it's just a Word document that we send back and forth. And I have that open whenever I'm writing a new book.
Right.
And I also have a separate document that is just the JQ timeline. So it's when things happen, who came in when. And I was just looking at that yesterday. That's why I remember which book the chief showed up in for the first time. But it's very difficult. You have to have something, and the Bible works for me. So,
does that ever inspire ideas? Do you go sort of trawling through it and figure, oh, actually, we haven't seen this character in a while, and there's some great story potential there? Does that ever happen?
It does happen. And a lot of times I will say to my editor, we have this character here who's been in the series for a while, but they're very underutilized. I think we could do something with them or bring them in. A lot of times I'll ask my readers on social media, who is a character that you would like to see come back, or who is a character that you want to know more about. And they're just happy to tell me who they want to see again, and whose backstory they want to know about, and that sort of thing. So I absolutely do use it in that way.
Fantastic. It's great that you've got that relationship with your readers as well, that you're sort of having this engagement with them where you can sort of almost give them ownership of the story. It's kind of saying, where we're going to steer the ship next. Do you ever get any crazy outlandish ideas that you think, okay, we're not going to go there? Or are they all on board? Are they all kind of pushing in the same direction?
They're on board. And I'll tell you what, my readers are very, very smart. There's a lot of twists and turns that when I'm writing it, I think to myself, I don't know if this is going to make sense to anyone but me. And then my editor will say, no, this is good stuff. And I'm like, I don't know, it was confusing to write it. It might be confusing to read it, but they're right there. They're right there with me. And they will go with just about any crazy outlandish idea I come up with. They're there for it. I mean, they're just the best.
It's a great lesson to learn, isn't it? I think too often we can underestimate the reader and feel that we maybe have to hammer home something. We put the idea on the page, and then maybe even in the same paragraph or a few pages down, we reinforce it. And it's like a lot of readers' feedback you get, no, we get it. You only have to tell us once. That's an important lesson to learn, isn't it?
It is. They're very smart and very savvy. And, most of my readers have been reading in this genre for quite a while. So you really have to work hard to provide them with a story that is going to keep them engaged and keep them guessing. I know as a reader myself, I'm disappointed if I'm into the first chapter and I'm already like, oh, I kind of know what's going to happen here.
Yeah.
So I don't ever want to do that. I want to bring them something fresh and original and twisty each time.
Fantastic. Well, talking about fresh and original and twisty, I mean, let's go back to the origins of this series. Book 1, Vanishing Girls, came out in 2018. And listeners, we're recording this in the spring of 2022. We're up to book 14. That's an incredible run. As I understand it, the series started with a 3-book contract. Did you ever think in just 4 years or so you'd still be writing this series and still taking Josie on these new adventures?
No, not at all. Not even for a second. I actually was talking to my husband last night. It's like, I can't believe that this is real, that I'm still getting to write this series. If you had told me this 5 years ago, which was before the first book had come out, and when I was in talks with Book Ocher, my publisher, to write the series and launch the series, I would not have believed it, not even for a second. And I say all the time that those first 3 books, there's a pretty complete story arc across the 3 of them, because I only had a 3-book contract. And I thought for sure that the books would tank and I would be out of contract and have to start over somewhere else or with some new characters. So I thought, well, if I only get to write 3 books, let me make them the arc very complete. So it's just beyond my wildest imaginings that I would be here now with book 14.
Did that create any problems? So you'd be working on the 3rd story, thinking, okay, I'm wrapping this up with a neat little bow, and Book Ocher tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, we'd love some more. Was there a point where you're thinking, oh, nuts, I've got to add more to this? Was that ever a problem, or did it sort of open things up and you thought, okay, great, this is an opportunity?
Well, I had no shortage of ideas. That was never an issue. So that was kind of fun. I just feel like if I had known that I would get to write so many more books, I may have parsed Josie's backstory out over more books than the first 3. But the readers don't seem to mind. I mean, they're cool with any case, and they want to know more about other characters. So it's really just been a lot of fun to get in there and see what else we can throw at Josie.
Wait, am I right in thinking that I read somewhere, I think Josie might be getting close-ish to retirement age? Is that correct?
Well, a reader just asked me this yesterday. She asked me how old she is, and I went, and that's why I was in my timeline. And so in book 14 or book 15, she'll be 30. It'll be book 15. She'll be 36.
Okay.
So I think she's still got a lot of time to solve cases.
Now, I'm sure I saw that somewhere, because it's something you hear. We spoke to Ian Rankin and Michael Connolly, and they've said similar things, which is they wish they'd started the character much, much younger, so they didn't have to retire them and think of ways to bring them back into the fold to, cold cases or whatever. So that's clearly not a problem. Cool. Let's talk about where it all started for you. Were you writing as a child? Was it something you always wanted to do? Was it something that came later?
Oh, I was writing as a child. I mean, as soon as I was able to hold a pen or a pencil, I was writing stories and poems. And it was just always something that was in me. I used to do it as a child as a way of kind of making sense of my world and the, confusing things going on around me. So that's where it started. And then I always wrote, and I wrote when I was 11 years old. I wrote my first mystery, and it was 140,000 words.
Whoa.
Yes. On an old-fashioned typewriter.
Oh,
old-fashioned.
wow.
It was just a typewriter then. And then in high school, I wrote 4 books, but they didn't, they were terrible, and they didn't really know what they wanted to be. And I still wasn't really, I was a kid, I just wasn't really, I was serious about it, but I wasn't that serious. So then I went to college, and I was doing the college thing, and I still was trying to write. I had a lot of ideas that, started off great, but then went nowhere, and I couldn't finish anything. And then it was after college. I was in grad school. I decided that I was going to try to finish something. I just wanted to finish something. I didn't care what it was like or if it was any good, or I didn't even really have plans to do anything with it. I just wanted to prove to myself that I could finish a book. And so I did. And I sent about 4 query letters out for that before I realized that it was really horrendous. And so I put that away. It's still on a flash drive in my nightstand. And and then I dabbled a little bit. And then I wrote what would later become my first published novel, Finding Claire Fletcher. Right. So I've always been working at this since I was 11 years old.
One of the things we talk a lot about in the podcast is finding your voice. And certainly very, like you, I was writing when I was younger, but I often tried to write like other authors because I thought that's how you write. Was there any author that you were trying to sort of ape or be like or emulate that when you were younger, or was your voice always there?
I think it's taken me a long time to establish and find my own voice, but I had a lot of influences. I mean, early on, I would say Dean Koontz was a huge influence. And oddly enough, the people that, or fittingly enough, I guess, the people that read my early stuff were like, this really reminds me of Dean Koontz.
Wow.
So, and then after that, I would say like Tammy Hogue, Lisa Jackson, and then Karen Slaughter has probably been my biggest influence. And then, I became completely obsessed with Dennis Lehane, Chelsea Kane. Who am I forgetting? Greg Hurwitz. So those were all authors that I was just really obsessed with, and I tried to learn from.
Yeah.
And to this day, if you look at my reviews on Amazon, a lot of people will say that, it reminds them of Karen Slaughter, except probably not as graphic or gory.
Yes. Yeah. I have to ask about that 140,000 word book that you wrote when you were 11. What was, pitch it to us right now.
Oh my goodness. So the premise was that these 3 orphaned girls, teenage girls, get this, they're approached or they get a letter. I can't remember exactly, but basically they each individually, they don't know each other. They each individually find out that they have inherited this creepy old mansion. And I don't even know where it was set, but it was set on a bay somewhere probably on the East Coast. And so they all show up at this mansion thinking that they're the heir. And when they get there, of course, there's 2 other people who are like, no, we're the heirs to this. And then as they're trying to determine how they got there, are they the true heir or not, naturally a murder happens. And then, there's like this crazed killer running around that they have to both get away from and, so they have to solve the case of who this person is and turn him into the police. And so, when I was 11 and I wrote that, I was saying to myself, oh, I can't wait to be an adult so that this will be acceptable.
That is brilliant. It sounds amazing. It sounds really, really cool. I mean, it's ever tempted to revisit, or is it best left in the past?
I've looked at it, over the years, and it's just really terrible. But now that you've made me pitch it to you,
it's a good idea.
If I took that broad premise, that might be, there might be something there.
Oh, I really, really hope it happens, Lisa. I really, really do. Take us through the events that led up to the publication of your first novel, Finding Claire Fletcher, because it's always fascinating to discover how you break through with that first novel.
Oh, that was a very long process.
Oh, we love a long story. Settle down, everyone. Settle down. Enjoy.
Well, I wrote it. And I was like, oh, this might be something that people would actually read. And so I started querying for it. I almost immediately got requests for it from agents. And then they all loved it, but they were like, we love it, but it's just no.
Right.
And then I had a couple of agents say to me, oh, I really love this, but I have some suggestions. And I said, well, that's fine. I'll revise it. And this one agent said, he gave me really great suggestions. And he kind of said to me, he did say to me, this book doesn't know what it wants to be. Right. So that's one of the things, you really need to zero in on what you're doing here. And so there were two agents in particular. I followed their advice. I took their suggestions. I revised it, sent it back to them. They both said no. And one of those agents kind of kept me hanging on, I'm undecided for 2 years, and the other was for 4 years. And I kept querying, and it was the same response all the time, which was that this is wonderful. This is awesome. And one agent said it's a home run. But no, we're not going to sign you. So finally, I got an offer from an agent, and that it had been 4 years. And at that point, I was like, I don't care who this person is. I don't care what their record is. I want to get this book on the road. So I said yes. And then I thought, oh, this is great. All my friends were like on submissions for like 6 months and getting, contracts. I was like, oh, 6 months from now, I'll have a book deal. And 2 years later, like 24 publishers, everyone said no. They all loved it, said no. And then a very, very small press that had just opened their doors. I said to my agent, like, let's submit to them, because we're really scraping the bottom of the barrel by now. And so we did, and they took it, and then they published it, and it did way better than anyone ever expected. But unfortunately, then that publisher closed. So it's just kind of hanging out there again.
So, that thing of you're told it's a home run and then you're rejected.
Yes.
4 years. Mm-hmm. What kept you going? What kept you going through all that time? Because I know a lot of listeners who might think 4 years, forget it. Obviously I'm not cut out for this. I need to do something else.
Right.
What kept you coming back for more rejection?
Well, it's like a couple of things, and one is just I'm just a Regan, and we're so stubborn that like it's to the point of when it seems like absolute madness to continue, we're just like, okay, give me more. So my dad had this great quirky little saying, and he used to say, let them tell you no, meaning keep going out there, keep throwing that book in the arena, keep doing your queries, stay on submissions, and just keep letting them tell you no, because eventually someone's going to say yes.
Yeah.
And that was kind of my mantra and my philosophy. But you're right. There came many points where I was like, this is clearly not going to ever happen. This is just not what is meant for me. And I had like a really low moment after that one agent that he had started at one agency and then brought me along to his new agency as a potential client, and then said no. And I was like, I can remember, I put my daughter to bed. I can remember that night, and I was just like sitting there like, okay, it's time to hang this up. This isn't going to happen. And I thought to myself, when my daughter gets older, because she was just a toddler then, everyone in my family is going to be like, oh, your mom, she was always writing. She wrote all the time since she was a kid. And then, inevitably my daughter would come to me and say, hey, everyone's talking about you writing all the time. What happened with that? And what was I going to say to her? What would that conversation look like? And I was like, I'm not going to have that conversation. Not ever. I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to have it. And so my focus became just not having that conversation with my kid ever. Not even getting an agent or getting a book deal or having something published. It was just like, I'm not going to tell my daughter that I gave up. I'm not going to look her in the eye and say, I gave up. So that really was the moment that I was like, that's it. I'm all in. I don't care if it's crazy. I'm doing this.
That is so cool. You've, I think you've sold something like 3 million copies now.
Yeah.
You know, what you're, you know, you're an international bestseller. What does your daughter think of you now?
I don't know. She's still, I mean, she thinks I'm all right, but
there's no pleasing kids, is there?
No, well, you know, when she was younger, she wanted to read my books, but I was like, no, you're too young.
Yeah.
Now she's almost 15, and I was like, well, you could read them now. And she's got like a third of the way through Vanishing Girls, and she was like, I mean, it's good, but it's just not for me. But she doesn't read murder mysteries, so you know, I don't know if it was the book or if it was me or she's just not her taste. So
don't worry, I can't get my kids to read my ones either. Don't worry. There's quite a lot of authors in the same boat, actually.
You'll never be cool in the teenager's eyes.
Exactly. Exactly. You mentioned something earlier about your editor, and I read somewhere, I think, that you have this great relationship with your editor where you draft, before you start a draft, you send the idea to your editor and you sort of develop the idea with them. Ultimately, of course, you make all the decisions, but which is, I think, is fairly unusual. Tell us how that came about, and is it something you still do with every book?
I do. And for me, it's because my schedule is so quick and demanding that for me, it really just started out as a time-saving thing, which is I don't want to spend, 3 months on this and 90,000 words if you're not going to approve it, or if I'm going to end up having to rewrite the entire thing. So it's a lot more efficient for me to pitch her the idea, or for us to kind of, we have a document that we pass back and forth that has a whole bunch of ideas, and we just kind of look at them and say, okay, here's where we are in the series. What do we think would be great to do next? What would the readers like? And then, we'll land on something, and I'll start outlining, maybe write a first chapter and then send it to her. And, she'll say to me, I like this, I don't like this, or I think this will work, or this won't work, and then it just saves time in the process. I mean, if I was taking 2 years to write one book, I would probably not need to do that, but it saves time. And also, she's just brilliant. I mean, she's just fabulously, amazingly brilliant. And she always, just with a little one-liner or just a question, will kind of open things up for me in a way that I hadn't thought of them before. So she really helps me get the ideas flowing with each book.
You have this incredibly prolific output, and looking at your reviews online, people are loving every book. They're loving that you keep the thrills and the twists and the pace coming. What's your routine like? How are you keeping up that productivity? What's a day in the life of Lisa Regan?
Well, I have to say that my husband contributes a lot to me being able to be this productive, because I don't have like a regular daily schedule. I try to, but it inevitably doesn't work out. A doctor's appointment, or something happens that I can't stick to it. So my schedule is basically, I'm writing almost all the time if I have a spare moment. And then I would say the last 6 weeks to a month before a deadline, like, you won't see me at all. I'll just be writing pretty constantly. But he always says that he's the Alfred to my Batman, because he just, and it's true, he takes care of everything. He runs the household. He takes, he kind of like runs interference so that I don't have to worry about anything except writing and working on the next book. So he just kind of comes in here and slides food across the desk, and then and then he comes back later and quietly takes away the empty plate, and he'll make sure that he handles everything with my daughter, so I don't if I'm really on a monster deadline, then he can deal with school and homework and all that stuff, and I'll just work. So really it's that, and it's a lot of I don't know if you can see, he made me this. I have this thermometer in my office. It's for my word count. So every time I start a new book, we put it down to 0. And then every day that I work on the book, if I get 1,000 words in, I just push it up to the next 1,000. And my goal is, usually between 80 and 90,000 words.
That's amazing.
And so everyone in my family can come in and look at this and see exactly where I am in the book. And, then they know whether or not to bother me.
That's such a good idea. So for listeners who aren't watching on YouTube, this is like, when you have a charity fundraising thing and you have that charity thermometer, it's one of those. And you're quite near the top to this one.
Yeah, that was just for book 15. Yeah.
That's such a great idea. That's brilliant. Well, I would ask Lisa what's coming next, but I guess it's book 15, isn't it? It's and I'm guessing Josie Quinn is going to be having plenty of adventures for some time, or are there plans to take a break, do something a bit different?
Right now, I'm contracted for a total of 20 books, and as long as the readers keep reading and clamoring for Josie, then those will be Josie Quinn books. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, long may that happen. Lisa, it's been a real joy speaking to you today. Thank you so much. And folks, Watch Her Disappear is the new Josie Quinn, or just start right at the beginning with Vanishing Girls and burn through them all and have a great time. Lisa, thanks so much for this. Hope to speak to you again soon.
Thank you.
What are your writing dreams? Finishing that book, quitting the day job, becoming a best-selling author? Well, over 4 years, we've studied the advice of over 300 best-selling authors who've collectively sold over 500 million books. And we are excited to announce the Bestseller Academy. If you're ready to take your writing to the next level with accountability, craft, and coaching, your bestseller dreams are now only a click away. To find out more and apply, visit bestsellerexperiment.com/academy. That's bestsellerexperiment.com/academy. What a fantastic interview. And you know what I love about that? Lisa talking about how she involves her fans in the creation of some of her books. The idea of, I guess there's a luxury, isn't there? When you've written 15 novels, there's a luxury of being able to say, which characters would you like me to bring back in? And it's interesting, I think every author's quite surprised by some bit part characters that people fall in love with and want more of. And I think it's brilliant that Lisa actually kind of puts the word out there and says, tell me which characters should I bring back in, and oftentimes they can become major characters within the actual series itself. Yeah, that's all part of cultivating a readership, of giving people a kind of an ownership of a series, which is one of those things that fosters word of mouth, which is that thing you can't really buy, and I think part of the secret to Lisa's success is that people feel like they're part of a community, part of something that's their thing. But when it's your thing, it's like when you find a favorite band, you find a favorite author, you find a brand new TV show, you want to tell people about it. You want to be the first one to tell them because that makes you one of the cool kids. So yeah, I think it's a great thing to do. Obviously, if you're 2 or 3 books into a series, that's going to be quite tricky to do. But when you're sort of 14, 15 books into a series, then suddenly you've got a little army there that you can mobilize. Well, completely. And I think too many people do get hung up. We've talked a lot about this on the podcast over the many years, but we've talked a lot about how people get really paralyzed by this idea of having to market themselves as an author, having to market their books. And it's a really good way to think about a different approach. Is it? Yes, obviously the word marketing is a very important word, but actually ultimately the longevity of an author's career is about building a fan base and building a community of fans around them as an author and their books. And if you think about it more as building a community, that feels a lot more family-like than marketing, which a lot of people think of trying to sell to people. And really all you ever have to do ultimately is kind of convince that person wants to try your book, and once they tried it and they love it and they're kind of all in and part of the community, you don't have to sell to them again. You just have to keep writing more great books that they will love and they'll buy, and more importantly, tell other people about. And they become, in fact, your greatest fans become your major marketing machine. If you do it right, they're the ones that bring the new fans in. So yeah, I think it's a really good reminder to us all that it's about building a community of fans.
Yeah, because marketing is kind of aggressive and pushy. It's essentially someone going, "Oi, you, over there, look at this. You might like this thing. No, don't look away. Look at this thing over here. Do I have to drag you by the ear hole?" It's quite aggressive. But whereas if you have a community, so it's one of the reasons why my Witches of Woodville newsletter, it's not technically written by me. It's written by the village librarian. So she can talk to them like she's one of the readers. And of course, it's actually really me writing it. But, it has that sort of fun tone to it, as if to say, she's saying, look, I'm just like one of you. I'm reading these books, and here's, but I've got the secret sort of insider skinny on what's going on. So, yeah, that idea of community is really, really powerful, I think.
And you realise you've just broken the hearts of thousands of readers and listeners who thought all along there was some librarian out there in Woodville. But anyway, we'll keep that to ourselves. The other thing that I thought was fascinating was the fact that, I'd never heard this before. Writing 140,000 words for your first book at age 11. That's insane. There's people that listening who think, I've never written 140,000 words, full stop.
Yeah, and what did she say? I can't wait until I'm an adult when this will be acceptable.
I love it.
Fantastic.
Someone way ahead of their time there. But isn't that amazing?
Yeah,
have you ever heard that? Have you ever heard of a prolific writer who started at that kind of age and wrote that level of words?
No, I was writing at that age, but it was mostly short crap. Frankly, but this is the thing. The thing is that I don't. What Lisa has done is amazing, but we should make it very clear it's not the norm. And I know we've got lots of people in the academy, people in the BXP. We've got listeners who are maybe in their 50s and 60s, and they're just starting out, and they might hear this and think, "Oh God, should I have started when I was 11? What can I do? There's, do I need a time machine? So don't. You can't. You have to, well, you'll know this, Mr. D. Runners are taught, the thing that they're taught is you're taught to run your own race. You can't, run someone else's race for them. You got to run your own race, and, you do it at your own pace and your own speed. I was at the RNA, the Romantic Novelists Association conference a couple of weeks ago, and at the evening dinner, I was sat next to a woman in her 80s called Hilary Ford Chalkley, and we got chatting. And she was telling me how she got an MA in creative writing from Kingston University in London. She got a master's at the age of 82.
Brilliant.
And she was telling me about her series that she wants this to be a long-running series as well. And her husband Sid, he's come out of retirement to help her. I'll put a link in the show notes to a news story about this, folks, so you can check it out. And just chatting to Hilary was really, really inspirational. 82. And as far as she's concerned, she was just getting started. And, I know people in the 40s, 50s, 60s might be listening and think, oh, God, I didn't start when I was 11. Does that mean I should give up? No. Run your own race. Take it at your own pace, people.
Yeah, and also it's a very interesting thing, writing. If you think about other types of careers or activities that we do, like take a sport, for example. If I tried to learn, say, I don't know, I'll just pick something random like curling today for the first time, it would take me time to become an expert in it. But the thing about writing is you don't start writing at 80. You don't start writing at 50. We've been writing since the very first day we were given that massive fat pencil. Do you remember those really big pencils we got in kindergarten?
Yeah.
No, we started writing. So it's just that we are redirecting our writing maybe towards starting a story or even starting a non-fiction book. And all of the emails, the texts, even all the conversations, all the films you've watched, all the books you've read, it's all part of the, in quotes, kind of training. And so actually somebody who starts when they're 82 has probably got the most incredible, nearly 80 decades of experience in that. I think that the thing that we have to learn, which is obviously why we do what we do and we have the academy, is there's a certain craft which we learn, but that can be learned. And the faster and deeper you go into that, the quicker you pick up those things which can help improve your writing. So yeah, people shouldn't feel downtrodden. And also, there's this great Chinese proverb, Mark, I actually read it this morning, weirdly enough, and it said, the great time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree is today. Right? So it's really important to remember that, today's all we've got. Moving forwards, we always only have the now. So if you're thinking about starting writing, Coach Mark says, start right now. In fact, pause this podcast and write the first sentence of your new book. Send us that sentence, and then we'll celebrate the fact that you've started your book.
Yeah, let's have it.
Brilliant stuff.
And then what they can do is they can put it on their thermometer for word count. Isn't that brilliant?
I love it. I tell you what, when
I'm
I heard
slightly annoyed. We should have thought of that first.
Yeah,
I'm annoyed we didn't and brand it and
Do you know the first thing I did? The first thing I did, Mark, when I heard that, I paused the interview and I went onto Amazon and I typed in writing thermometer, and there was I got thousands of medical. If anyone's doing it right now, don't bother, because you get all the medical thermometers and things like that. But yeah, I absolutely think that's a brilliant idea. Anything visual, anything large as well, something that sticks out, like the fact that her family could walk in the room and go, oh great, mum's cracked off another couple of thousand words this week, or just to share in that visual celebration of getting towards that end point. So important. And actually we did a whole thing about the 10 reasons why people don't write on the life coaching in the academy last week.
Right.
And what was interesting is one of the things on that list was people aren't tracking. They have no way of tracking their progress, or they haven't even decided on their word count from the outset. So they can't even use a thermometer because they don't even know, well, how long is it going to be? I don't know. It's so important to do these things, and having something to track is fantastic.
Now, so this is why I still do the 200 word a day challenge, because I get a feeling of accomplishment, and I haven't missed a day this year.
Wow.
I've been writing every day since Jan 1st. So
that's amazing. Absolutely.
And it's interesting.
Brilliant.
I'm writing between 30 and 50,000 words a month. So the variation is kind of big depending on what project I'm working on. I tend to write fewer words when I'm writing screenplays, of course. So, but it's all adding up. It's all adding up. And I finished a very rough and ratty first draft of Woodville number 4 the other day. So, that's I started that in January. So that took about 6 months,
Well,
so,
30 to 50,000 words a month on average. If you took that's 500,000 words a year. That's racking it up, mister. I mean, that is pretty bonkers in terms of output per year. And it's
I need the money.
Well, but it's incredible though, isn't it? I mean, if someone had told you, say 20 years ago, you'd be writing 500,000 words a year, would you have believed them?
Probably not. I was quite lazy then. My work ethic. I mean, if people who knew me, I scraped through my A levels by the skin of my teeth, basically. So I've managed to develop a work ethic. But funnily enough, since I started this podcast, it's not 20 years ago, maybe a couple of years ago. But no.
Brilliant stuff. Now, one thing that really jumped out for me in Lisa's interview was her story about her daughter. And how we'll get to the family reading books thing in a minute, because we have to get to that. But the thing that really, really hit home for me was this idea that when she was on the verge of giving up, it wasn't her own thoughts around her own life that kept her going. It wasn't like, I've got to do this. I've got, I've made this promise to myself. It became about not being able to tell, or her daughter, having a conversation in years down the road of turning around and not saying to her, I gave up writing. Mm-hmm. And, I think this is one of the most powerful things that we can do as an author is think about, and this is what we've talked about again on the Academy and the podcast for years. Writing is not just about our own pursuit. In itself, it's in a lifetime pursuit. It's an incredible thing to do, but it's actually what we do to inspire others by following our passion and writing and never giving up. And the fact that it ties in, I know this is so true for parents, is that thinking about your kids and how you inspire your kids through your actions and not your words, that was the thing that kept Lisa going, and look where she is now. And I kind of want to know the story in 5-10 years time when we hear about how her daughter reflects on what she learned through her mum, and how maybe her daughter chose her passion. It might not be writing, but it might be something else, but didn't give up in that pursuit because of the fact her mum kept going and demonstrated to her, as a role model, how important it is to never give up. For me, that is such an important thing.
Yeah, you learn quite early on as a parent that pretty much everything you do shapes the way, particularly when they're very young.
Yeah.
If you see a spider and scream at a spider, they will scream at a spider, and then you might inflict arachnophobia upon them, that kind of thing. So you learn very soon that you have to set an example as a parent. And it's interesting. My daughter is writing, and I've got a draft of her novel that I've got to read and give her notes on, so it's interesting to see that she's got into the habit, she's creating worlds and writing every day and all that kind of stuff as well. Claire has a book that I've got to give us. They both finished books at roughly the same time, so I've got to give them notes on their books. So yeah, it's clearly rubbing off. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And what I thought was lovely as well is that Lisa's own father had this great saying, which is "Let them tell you no," because eventually someone's going to say yes. And I think you've got to have a very healthy attitude to rejection and the naysayers and the people who don't believe you. It's there's an awful lot of self-belief needed in this game as well.
Absolutely. And if anyone is a subscriber to the Bestseller Experiment podcast, you will know that we pick a line from the interview to use as the kind of headline subject on the email. I think that might be the subject of that email because I love that quote. I absolutely love that quote. And it's so important, isn't it? It's so important to remember. And we do tell everyone, every rejection letter you get is a badge of honor. Put it up there and feel proud of the fact that you went through that process. You got rejected because you're one step closer to getting a yes. So it's really important to remember that. And again, Lisa showed up here, to inspire us all and remind us that it's absolutely possible. And this is someone who could have given up. Now, let's just touch on this subject again, because it always makes me laugh when I hear this, but it's so common now, isn't it? Family members and books, books that you've written. It's so true though, isn't it? There is just no, how does it, what's going on there? What do you think's going on there? I think it's that classic kind of saying, I don't want to kind of make this sound too kind of like overly pompous, but it's like a prophet is never recognized in their own town, right? It's like...
Oh, can you imagine if I'll get up one morning in sandals and a long, robe and tell the kids I'm a prophet. Yeah,
eating locusts.
They'll be nailing me to a cross by lunchtime.
No, but it's that concept of you told that story a couple of weeks ago about somebody's telling you about how much they were loving your books, and you were kind of like feeling a bit kind of almost like slightly uncomfortable with all the praise that you're getting. Yeah. But then in your house, it's like you're just your dad, aren't you? You're just your dad, your hubby.
Yes. And there's also, just being here demystifies, because a lot of people from the outside looking in, when they only see the finished book, which has been edited and, yada, 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 and it's gone through the whole process. And, if you pick up your favorite, if you, pick up Lisa's books and you read them and it's terrific and you think Lisa's great, she, plucks these stories out of thin air, which is what a lot of people think happens, whereas my kids kind of know how the sausage is made, both for books and for film, so there's a kind of, well, it's what Dad does, it's what he does. He sits there and makes stuff up and then sporadically gets paid for it.
yeah. But it's a really important reminder to everyone, because I think we still fall for this idea that, we expect to get like full support from family members, and it is a very common thing that we have come up. Actually, again, even in the Academy, it's crazy all the tie-ins, but one of the Academy members was talking about how, they have this guilt around writing. They have a guilt when they go off and they spend an hour writing when they think they should be spending time with their spouse or spending time with their kids. And obviously it's all about balance. I mean, we heard how, Lisa has to go to complete extremes to finish her books, and almost be cut off from family life for a period of time whilst she can finish. And that's kind of long term. That's not healthy. I mean, but if it's only sporadically and she's got the support of the family, which she has, then it's doable. But for a lot of people out there, they don't have any support from family, and they get the classic, well, are you still working on that book? You're still trying to knock out, go get a proper job. All the classic stereotypes and tropes that we hear. But I think it's important as a writer just to get beyond that and just accept that that's the norm. It's okay. It's okay to, it's okay to feel sad or disappointed if a family member hasn't read your book or isn't interested in your book project. But there's a lot of people out there that will be. And, you have to push through that.
Yeah. We, you may recall a few weeks ago, we had Saray Walker on the show, and she was talking about claiming that time for yourself. And it is important. And we've had people on here who have, families, they have work, they have to care for people, but they can still find that Pomodoro 20 minutes where they can do a little bit every day. And it is important. I mean, I'm speaking from a position of privilege, and I've been very lucky. And also, my kids are grown up. My wife's known me for 30 years. They don't, they're not interested in me anymore. The novelty's worn off, so they just let me get on with it. Yeah. So there's that. But as Saray said a few weeks ago, claim that little bit of time for yourself, and make sure you do that.
Yeah. Now, the other thing that I thought was really interesting, we've now found the male equivalent to Julie. For anyone,
Julie, yes.
From anyone listening back, now what was the episode, Mark, where it was Find Your Julie?
Yes, well, that was Angela Marston's.
And
we've had 2 episodes of Angela, and Julie is her partner, and Julie just helps Angela do her thing, as with Lisa's husband.
Yeah,
takes care of all the day-to-day stuff so they can focus on the writing, and that's wonderful. If you can find someone like that, cling on to them.
The t-shirt now is if you have a female spouse, it's Find Your Julie. And if you have a male spouse, it's Find Your Alfred.
Right, yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. But no, I mean, that's absolutely huge. And I think it's, it's wonderful to have somebody so supportive and obviously loving what Lisa's doing. I think it's incredible to see that level of support is fantastic. And I like the way she talks about how her husband kind of runs interference.
Yes,
that's
great
a great
phrase,
term, isn't it? It's a really good term. Yeah. Now, what about developing ideas with an editor? Because that's something which I haven't heard much on the podcast. That's quite a novel thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's always done to a certain level, I think, because editors like to know what's coming. So, I mean, certainly when you first pitch to an agent or an editor, especially if you're writing a series, you would generally say, okay, this is what I think say if you're pitching a trilogy, here's book 1, 2, and 3, here's what happens in those, and it might just be a paragraph for each one, it might be more. But if you're lucky enough, like Lisa, who's contracted for 20 books, I mean, Bookature, they don't muck about with their book deals, do they?
I know, right.
I mean, Angela, it was 12 book deal, yeah. So, I think if you've got that long-term relationship, then it makes complete sense to sit down and say, okay, here's the next 2 or 3 books, and maybe there's a mini arc, or maybe there's something you want to do, or maybe there's, the most successful media organization in the world does it. Just a little while ago, we had Marvel telling us what they're putting out for the next bloody 5 years or so. So they've got that big diagram that says, okay, here's the next Black Panther movie, here's the She-Hulk TV show. All of these things are laid out. So they do it partly for the fans, but they also do it for their investors. So the investors can go, oh, okay, that's a great lineup. I shall keep investing in Disney and Marvel and all that kind of thing. And in a similar way, you're doing that with your publisher. You're saying, okay, so for the next 2 books, what do we? So when I got the 2-book deal with Simon & Schuster to continue The Witches of Woodville, I had to pitch what the next 2 books are going to be about and give them an idea of where they're going. And that definitely helped, focus the mind on where we were going next. It definitely helped me get that deal. And I know that, when I sit down with my editor, we talk about what she would say, I really enjoyed this in that book and I really enjoyed this. So let's make sure you don't lose any of that. She doesn't want me going off course and doing something that's going to, spoil the brew, or screw up the formula.
And it's important. It's important to have this kind of sense of pipeline. I mean, that's the kind of term that comes to mind for me. It's just like what's coming down the pipeline. And it also helps focus you on your own direction, because the longer you've got ahead of time to think about it, the more you can roll into it, rather than getting to a place in your kind of writing career where you're thinking, right, I've done that book. Oh, what do I do next? And then
what's next? Yeah,
you can be a bit stuck, and you can actually have the momentum can just kind of stop dead at that point. And then that can be hard then to get going, right? Again, so I do like that idea.
And there will be people listening to, I use the word formula, and you use the word pipeline, which sounds horrible and kind of, it's formulaic, you're just churning out the same thing again and again. But the thing is, when I'm doing my day-to-day, right, I'm not thinking about that. But when I'm pitching, when I'm doing the business side of things, you have to think like that, because it's a business.
Yeah, you've got to get in that mindset.
The Witches of Woodville stories have a certain tone, and this has become absolutely clear with the 3rd book. The reviews have been absolutely amazing because people know the characters now. They know the characters, they know the world, and they're saying to me, oh, it's wonderful to come back and I've liked this, and this. So I can't help but think, great, they like that. I need to give them more of that. Mm-hmm. The same but different. Yeah. Not the same thing over and over again. But, so they've told me that they love Faye and they love the relationship between Faye and Bertie. Okay, great. So in the next book, let's do a bit more on that. So you can't help but think, okay, the people who read this stuff really enjoy these elements. I can surprise them with other elements as well, but I'm not going to suddenly, not have that in the next book, or, if you make a big tonal shift, or you suddenly set it in a new place, or jump forward 20 years, those things that, if you're answerable to no one, kind of, you can maybe try, but I now have a readership. And again, it goes back to what we were saying at the beginning about a community, building a community of readers. That community has expectations. Now, you shouldn't dance to their tune, but you should be aware that there will be expectations. So it's a really, really tricky balance. And I think this is why you're starting to see divisions and fandoms, with Star Wars and Doctor Who and stuff like that, where old school people sort of can get a bit, poisonous in their opinions of what these shows should be like, because they feel like they have a longer term ownership of them. You see it with rock bands as well. It's like, well, did you listen to their early stuff? You didn't just, if you're a Pink Floyd fan, if did you listen to Piper at the Gates of Dawn though? No, you didn't. Well, actually, you're not a real fan then, actually. That kind of nonsense. So just let people enjoy the things they enjoy. But as a creator, there is a balance to be had in, you've got to develop new and exciting and thrilling stuff, but you've also got to deliver the stuff that they love. Yeah. And that's the thrill and the curse of it.
It is. And for many authors who struggle, especially those that think, if I'm going down the indie route, I don't have the accountability of a traditional author giving me a deadline to finish my book. Well, your accountability becomes your readers. Your accountability comes, keeping delivering things that they will love and keep on raving about. So yeah, it's a great kind of relationship there between the two. Excellent stuff. Well, Lisa absolutely has inspired many people, I'm sure, today. Thank you, Lisa, for all the time you gave us. And we hope as well, listening to her interview and the kind of the post chat around it, that you feel inspired. If there's anything that's inspired you about the interview, please drop us a note. Let us know what inspired you. Did you get a light bulb moment which you think, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that? Or maybe you gave up and you thought about your kids, and maybe you might reverse that decision now. We want to hear about that as well, because those moments are absolutely fantastic to hear about as well. So, Mr. Stay, what's happening on social media this week? Okay, well, look, you folks, if you've been following the podcast this year, you'll know that our long-term supporter of the podcast over on Patreon on the Bestseller Experiment Facebook group, Andrew Chapman, he wrote a novel in a day. And it's called The Mask Collector. And if you want to learn more about this, we did an interview with Andrew, a special interview, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes. You can discover all about it. Well, by the time this podcast goes live on Sunday 31st, so this comes out on the Monday, the 1st of August. So 31st of July, 2022, The Mask Collector will be released. So his book, which he wrote in a day, has been edited. It's gone through the whole process. The pitch is a bank heist goes wrong when one of the hostages turns out to be a wanted serial killer. It's terrific. So, Andrew, fantastic news. Congratulations on that. If you've read it, send him a review, give him those stars, pile it on. Let's hope that he gets some sort of, bestseller flag or a bunch of great reviews. But Andrew, we salute you, sir. That's an amazing achievement. Absolutely amazing stuff. Brilliant stuff, Andrew. Congratulations. And congratulations to the fact that he entered the pre-release charts in between two of his favourite novelists, Stephen King and Stephen King. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
So absolutely fantastic. Yeah, brilliant. Can't wait to hear how all that goes.
And over on the Academy, we've got Elizabeth Grover with some great news. Now, I had a wonderful one-to-one with Elizabeth on the Academy, and she's talking about her forthcoming books and the social media and a website and a newsletter. She's got a wonderful dog, and she's training the dog to unbox her books for her. I've told her she's basically going to break the internet when this goes live. So when this goes live, we are going to be pushing it out there everywhere. Brace yourself. But anyway, Elizabeth had 2 wins this week. She said first she's going to have the final galley proofs of her book One Little Lie with a release date soon to follow. And she's received a contract for her book Touch and Go, which will hopefully both of them will be out later this year, 2022. Elizabeth, we salute you on that, and we can't wait until this all goes live and gets people really excited.
Absolutely brilliant, yeah. And Elizabeth's wonderful. She's always there at the coaching. She's
always
just phenomenal.
She's just terrific. We love
Very
her to bits.
inspiring.
We love her to bits. It's terrific. So, folks, look, if you want to get in touch, drop us a line. You can find us on social media. We're Bestseller Experiment on Facebook and at Bestseller XP on Twitter and Instagram. Or just go to the website, bestsellerexperiment.com. There's a contact tab there, and you can drop us a line there.
Brilliant. And if you'd like to get the weekly Bestseller Experiment newsletter, where you find out about our current interview, what you'll learn from it, and who's possibly coming up next. We've got some big names, folks, coming up in the next couple of months. Pop over to the bestsellerexperiment.com website and click on the newsletter tab. And if you would like to get the writing habit of a lifetime, don't forget the 200-word challenge. That's 200 words a day. It's a free challenge that we've set up to help you make the habit of a lifetime in writing. It absolutely works, folks. We've had such an incredible amount of people on this. So pop along to 200wordchallenge.com. And finally, we should mention that if you want to become part of the Bestseller Academy, all these amazing stories of successful authors coming out of it, come on over to academy.bestsellerexperiment.com. Get your name on the wait list to find out about the opening this September. So, Mr. Stay, I hope you have a fantastic week.
You too.
And yeah, enjoy it. And I'm going to go and get a nice, cool, iced drink of water for my melt. And so wishing everyone else an amazing, amazing writing week this week. Keep going. Don't give up, folks. And if you have, there's always a chance to restart as well. So all the best. And it's a goodbye from Mark 1.
And a goodbye from Mark 2. Tatty
Goodbye.
bye.